keep this going. The show is on the road here. Cynthia McKinney, it's greatly honored. I'm honored beyond belief that you're on our show today. And Stu as well, thank you. And I've got the information and credits down here in the bottom of the screen. We're still assembling the set here, but that's all right. We're just staying busy as all the time. We might get hired as dwarfs for somebody from the North Pole here. Maybe. Of course, they might not have enough employees. Stu and Cynthia, if we're getting into some projects here of informing ourselves, that's what we seem to be doing. Public access. How else do we get more information from us, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true, and I'm always honored to be on with you, Will, and provide the quality of guests that we have, such as the Honorable Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman. And with that said, I think there's a lot of subjects we need to touch on tonight, but I'm going to turn the mic over, should we say, here to Cynthia, and let her go in with the subject she wants to discuss this evening for the next hour.
Well, first of all, I'd have to say thank you to both of you for having me on, and I would like to add my voice to the celebration of public access television. The sad fact is that public access TV is under attack, at least in my part of the country, and I don't know if it is there, but the hours are being diminished, the staff is being diminished, and it's something that the people really have to fight for. But why should the people have to fight for broadcast airwaves that belong to them? And so this is an opportunity for, as you say, for the people to educate each other and for us to have community conversations. And I'm happy to be able to partake in this one with you all.
We appreciate that a lot, Cynthia. Since I've last seen you on TV, and Stu, I know we all kind of remember you were there at the boat relief. It took a lot of courage, Cynthia. You got our attention. And then, Stu, as you mentioned, we're up against a circumstance where they're trying to take down communications. VeteransToday.com. Cynthia, you're familiar with that, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and Stu, as we report apparently through Veterans Today, and there's been articles about you in Veterans Today, right, Stu?
Well, yes, and I am a columnist there now, and have been since December of last year. But I also have my website, StuWebb.com, and I believe that I've reported whistleblow, should we say, for 30-some-odd years now, or right at 30 years, and I've caused a lot of problems and over the years, and especially the 4 congressional investigations back in 1990 of the HUD scandal, the savings and loan scandal involving Silverado and Neil Bush and Charles Keating, and the Denver International Airport, and what they dubbed the Keating Five, which encompassed John McCain, the Israeli Senator John McCain, and what was actually the MDC 200. But, I've reported over the years, I've done probably 3,500 radio shows, probably 150 TV shows. I think most of your listeners know my background. But where we're at today, Will, is that we have an organized crime syndicate that has taken over this country. We have what I call the Council of 13, these 12 devil worshippers that is the Illuminati, the 12 men who are in control of 92 to 97% of the economies worldwide, whereas in 1981 they were only in control of that 1%, as Occupy calls it. They were only in control of 20% of the U.S. economy. Today, according to the General Accounting Office, as of June of last year, 2012, which is the watchdog agency of the U.S. Congress and Senate, they reported that they're in control of 95% of the economy, and the 400 men are making more money than half the entire U.S. population of 330 million people, which means we have organized crime. 12 men cannot take over the economies of the world without fraud, narcotics trafficking, weapons trafficking, and the profiteering thereof. And that's what has happened to the United States of America, and they control Israel, and they control Bibi Netanyahu, and it points all back to a group of men which is controlled or controlling AIPAC, the Anti-Defamation League, and other organizations, Simon Wiesenthal Center. They're all on the board of directors of this. They've committed treason, sedition against the United States of America, and we've got to put a stop to it. They're controlling the United States Congress and Senate. I think Cynthia McKinney, a former congresswoman, honorable woman, and I had the honor and pleasure of having breakfast with her one morning, having a discussion over 9/11 and the attack on America, which she was in Kansas City and met with me, and I've known her all these years, and they outed her shortly after those hearings. That is, they targeted her specifically. If you remember the little incident over a hairdo, where Cynthia was well recognized by the guards at Capitol Hill, and that began the process of her elimination because she did not fit into the mold of the organized crime, and that's how I got to know her. But with that said, I think that Cynthia could pick it up from there.
Well, yes, and we were able to have what a great meeting that was, because it was a meeting of the minds. You had come from quite a different background from where I come from. I'm a Southern girl, and but we arrived at the same destination, and now we're able to jump in the car together and head off in a future that we are willing to work together to achieve. So I think that is really the spirit in which we always come together, and the spirit in which we have to meet each other, and that is finding ways in which we can work together, find common ground, and make the kind of change, the structural change that this country so desperately needs. This country at the present time is being hollowed out. It's probably already been accomplished that everything that is of value in this country is being hollowed out, and the people of the United States are being left with the shell, while the value is being stripped by a small group of people, that criminal cabal that you talked about, and they have committed crimes against the Constitution, crimes against the people of this country, and, their names are never called, and they're never held accountable.
Well, if I could throw out their names real quick, we can point the finger at my former father-in-law, Leonard Bellman, his partner, Larry Mizell, George Herbert Walker Bush, Meyer Rothschild, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, Anwar bin Shari, the head rabbi out of Israel, Pope Benedict that resigned here a while back because he was dying of lung cancer, was in a problem with pedophilia within the Catholic Church, and Grace of Grace and Company, the brother of William Grace that tells the Queen of England, Prince Charles, what to do, and also a guy named Warburg. Now, those are the Council of 12 that are the devil worshippers, the child pedophiles and satanic worshippers that I identified back in June, of which a man was shot and killed for kidnapping a kid, Sammy Wallace. It was hit mainstream media in Oklahoma City, where he grabbed a kid out of a Walmart, and the police nailed him down, and he had a knife to the kid's head, and 18-year-old, and they wanted to know what this was about. And they were on Amber Alert, thanks to friends of mine in military intelligence who lit them up previously because of the article that I put on Veterans Today. And they stopped the human sacrifice. And they actually exterminated the guy, shot and killed him on the spot because there was no other way of protecting the child. And it was done in a Walmart, as I said, and it's on my website, StuWebb.com. The title was VT and Stu Webb were right, satanic human sacrifice. And the word was from people in military intelligence told me that put a bullet in Larry Mizell's head, the bank bailout scamster, quote unquote. that put an end to him as far as his public relations, being the cell, APEC, director of APEC, and what he considers the cell, which is counterintelligence, terrorism, that he created out of Denver, Colorado. He was also, as a result of that, appointed as an honorable colonel of the Colorado Highway Patrol, so he could carry a badge illegally. And he is one of the Illuminati Council of 13, the bank bailout scamster. And they will be doing, by the way, on December the 22nd, they will be performing their event once again at the Old Navarre, the old whorehouse casino across from the Brown Palace Hotel in downtown Denver, Colorado, on December the 22nd between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. And this year, I guarantee you that U.S. intelligence has already guaranteed me they have cameras on the whole place. So maybe we'll catch them coming and going in and out of the tavern at the Brown Palace Hotel, the Ship's Tavern, in that secret underground tunnel that they cut through down by the restrooms in the tavern. And but with that said, Cynthia, you questions to you. I've named the names of the head of the council worldwide. Questions you. I mean, you were a congresswoman on Armed Services Committee at the time, as I recall, and that was during the time right after 9/11. And you were up on the Hill, and you were trying to do your job, and you were one of the few up there, and I had reached out to you over that, and others, and we had the meeting later, and you had discovered that there were, through an event where you had the hearings, and you were questioning General, I call him Blackjack Myers, he's known as, General Richard Myers, and you questioned Rumsfeld first, Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense, and asked them about the various military operations that were going on at the time, and they informed you. Of course, Donald Rumsfeld passed the microphone and passed the buck to General Myers, who revealed that there were, 7 military, I think at the time he said 5 military and 1 FBI, or 4 military and 1 FBI exercise going on the day of 9/11. Would you tell the listeners what happened in those hearings?
Yes. Actually, it was a series of hearings, and it was amazing to me that there are over 50 members of Congress in the House Armed Services Committee, and the Secretary of Defense could say that they couldn't find $2.3 trillion. They had made $2.3 trillion in transactions, and they just couldn't track them. They didn't know where the money went.
Well, Cynthia,
and so I asked them about it and the stewardship of the taxpayers' dollars. That was one of the questions that has made the rounds on the internet, on YouTube. Me grilling Rumsfeld is what they call it. And then I asked them about September 11th, and why shouldn't the Secretary of Defense be asked about the events of September 11th, where the Pentagon couldn't even defend itself? And the whole proposition is ludicrous if one steps back and looks at the story that we're told and then compare the story to the real world, the reality as you know it. It just didn't make any kind of sense. And so I asked those questions, and of course I got punished for it, but I asked about the war games that were going on, and General Myers had the nerve to tell me that the response was enhanced as a result of the war games that were going on. And I do hasten to add that I made a mistake, because I asked about 4 war games that were going on. And when they did respond and tell me about the 4 that they gave us were not the ones that we knew about. So in actuality, there were 5, 6, 7, 8 war games going on. I mean, you talk about layering the onion to make sure that you don't get to the core. That's exactly what it seems like was going on.
Yes. Now, Catherine Fitz, who was the HUD former secretary of HUD, Housing and Urban Development, she was sent in after I caused the HUD scandal involving my former father-in-law and Leonard Melman and Larry Mizell, where they were robbing HUD the mod rehab, which I had to work with Christopher Shays and Tom Lantos and the others on those hearings. And there is a letter thanking me from Congress, the Congressional Investigation Team, on my site. But Catherine Fitz, Solari.com, she was the one that found, because I was working with her after she left, was fired by Jack Kemp, who replaced Samuel Pierce in the HUD scandal. And she had, under Al Gore's program that they did not want in as vice president. I've always respected Al Gore. I thought he was pretty much clean. Sometimes politicians get tainted up, but I always thought he was clean. And I respect him because he was duly elected in the year 2000. And he had set up the private partnership and public-private, government-private partnership, to where if you could find fraud within the government would, pay you a percentage of the initial find to straighten out a particular agency. And that's what Catherine did, Catherine Fitz, after she left HUD. And she went after Irvin and Associates. It turned out to be tied to Leonard Melman. It was tied to reinsurance fraud. And she found $2.5 billion worth of fraud. So they owed her $2.5 million. Well, they said, we're going to can you. She ended up in a lawsuit over that. And Al Martin, the whistleblower, Iran-Contra whistleblower, and myself, and Stephen Dinerstein, that's now dead, was attacked with one of the only known 3 people die of a certain biological chemical about 5 years ago. There's a former defense intelligence agent, DOD, investigator, that it was the actual one that went after Al Martin for his Iran-Contra security frauds and got him to turn on them, that caused the Iran-Contra hearings and so forth, and the appointment of the independent prosecutor. He, Dinerstein, and I tried to help Catherine Fitz. And Catherine Fitz, at the time, had come up with this $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon. She also, from 1991 through 2001, I believe it was, or 2000, and she also was the one that found, she's a financial expert, she also found $60 billion missing out of HUD in a 2-year period of time. And it all led back, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Cynthia, but it led back to Dynacorp. And Dynacorp was heavily involved in Bosnia and other places in trafficking of children. And on the board of directors are a very interesting cat and gators of all kinds of spooks and everybody else within government that are tied to Daddy Bush and Leonard Melman. I don't know whether you were aware of that or not.
Well, I have had the opportunity to meet and talk to Catherine Austin Fitz, and she is an amazing woman. There's a community of people out there that really have the interests of this country at heart, and they have made sacrifices because they wanted only the best for this country, and they wanted to do the right thing for themselves. And yes, she has talked to me about the corruption that she uncovered. Now, of course, I didn't have the detail that you have in terms of, the family member and that sort of thing being involved in it. But just to know that HUD was displacing members of she focused on the Los Angeles community when she talked to me. And she talked about how the neighborhoods in Los Angeles were basically drive the prices down. Nobody wants to live there. Let the drugs come in. Then you can pick up the houses for a song, and later you develop them into, desirable communities. And so this was the scam, and she stumbled on it, and her real crime was that she began to teach the people in those neighborhoods that were affected what was actually happening to them. So this is a fine woman who has done a service to our country. And, the problem is that there's so much corruption everywhere you look. And the people who are the whistleblowers, the people who make the courageous stand, are the ones who get punished. And then they get forgotten. So, it's important to raise their names because they've suffered a lot. Let me tell you, it's easy to do the wrong thing. And it's hard to do the right thing because of the repercussions that come to you personally. I was thinking about this today. I'm working on my PhD. And I was reading this book about leadership. And the author, James McGregor Burns, was talking about moral leadership and transformational leadership. And transformational leaders, according to Burns, are the leaders that have social goals as their end goals, the high values of liberty and security and freedom and dignity. Those are their values. But when they stand up for those values, the punishment is personal. So here you have someone who makes a sacrifice in the first place for the public, and that sacrifice is for a goal of, say, for example, liberty. And yet, when the attack comes, it's very personal.
Well, it's not only personal, but it's like myself. They've been after me so long that they've tried to kill me 30 times now. I've been falsely arrested 30 times. I've been incarcerated for 10 and a half months illegally, and the charge is dismissed with prejudice, thank God, to the only honest federal judge in Denver, Colorado, Richard Mage, and they killed his daughter over it. Bizarre situations.
Stu, we've got 4.5 minutes left for this segment. I've got a panel behind me. I was going to say, would you like to introduce yourself real quick? And this is Mikado, and he's here in our studio real quick, and we've got him. Go ahead. You've got the microphone. Go ahead.
Hi.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
My name is Mikado Karibe, and I'm representing Northwest Cannabis Market. We are America's first one and only open daily cannabis market. We are here. We are here to stay, and we invite you to come to one of our events here coming up next week on December 14th. It's a red carpet charity ball, a black tie affair. If you have any questions regarding this, please call us at 206-420-4065.
And that's Compassionate Provider Network, right?
Well, we have, this is an advocacy group that I help run that I've had for some time. There are a bunch of us involved. Compassionate Provider, or CompassionateProvider.com, Compassionate Provider Network. We are working with, there's about 20 different networks involved in what's taking place here in Seattle. We're just protecting a free market, a free enterprise that we've helped create.
Really good. And we could have the website coming up in the background. But anyways, that's Compassionate Provider. And I just wanted to mention, what kind of events you're working with? Steve Sarich, right?
Steve Sarich is involved. Yes, Canalaw's involved. Members of Cannabis Defense Coalition, as well as Compassionate Provider Network. There's a whole bunch of people, not just who I've mentioned, but a whole load of people that just feel that it's our right, and we're not going to do anybody any good by sitting around waiting for somebody else to talk about it.
I appreciate that a lot, and just want to get this in real quick, Cynthia and Stu, thank you. Whereas we're trying to deal with something that could make a difference for the entire global economy in different ways, including saving people's life with nuclear removal, because apparently cannabis does remove nuclear contamination. Cynthia, we're going to get ready for another part here real quick. As we go into this next half hour, Stu, as far as legislation, are you going to be back in our legislature? Excuse me, if I could say it right. Legislature. You're about the only person that actually worked for your salary, from what I can see. I mean, none of the other ones, nobody in Congress is actually doing a job, are they?
Well, it's something that continues to sadden me that people are taking orders from leaders, so-called leaders. They're people with positions of authority, but they are not leaders. And those who are elected take orders from these people, but they don't realize that these people are actually taking orders from other folk. And so the U.S. taxpayer is 3 or 4 times removed from decisions that are made by the members of Congress. It's supposed to be a representative democracy. This is supposed to be where we send people to Washington, D.C. for national policy, and that they're supposed to make policy on behalf of us. That policy is supposed to reflect our values. And here you can have the people of the United States who are sick and tired of war, and yet this country continues to finance war. You can have a presidential election and no one ever talk about war. Nobody ever mentioned the word war. I understand that General Martin Dempsey, who saved this country from being, well, the United States is still involved in the war against Syria, but at least it's not boots on the ground. Unfortunately, it's the Syrian people who are suffering still with the kind of engagement that the United States has and is financing. But Martin Dempsey had a town hall meeting, which I missed, and I was hoping that maybe, Stu, you might have tuned in to see what he had to say.
Well, yeah, I did publish it because he wasn't getting attention, and I did publish it on my website today and on Veterans Today, and we had over 1,200 reads as of 2 o'clock, and he had his town hall meeting, 1-hour town hall meeting on Facebook today, which I was happy with, and I think I brought him a lot of attention. I respect him highly because, Cynthia, he did stop the war in Syria. He was called up before the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Hey, Stu?
Obama says we're going to attack Syria.
Stu, we're going to take a break here for about
Let's take a break and pick it up
we'll
on
be
the
right back,
next,
everybody.
next.
Hang in there. Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman, and Stu Webb, now working with VeteransToday.com. And if you want, you can. And so the whole thing is that what do we do when we've got literally not just a crime syndicate, Stu, it's a murder syndicate. I know I'm not wrong on that. And so we need to look at it from the standpoint of Criminal Murder Incorporated as what we call the banking system. They're the ones that pay or make us pay, and we're definitely going to pay for this one with the Fukushima nuclear contamination, the Hanford nuclear blow-off from depleted munitions, uranium munitions at Hanford itself. The whole thing gets a little bit too much out of control. And Cynthia, I'm going to get you up to speed so we can cover this in this next half. On Brown's gas, hydroxy gas, it's a remedy as well as Paul Pantone. And as you know, we've had other remedy as well. Colonel Tom Bearden, as you know, has offered to bring in scalar technology that could neutralize that. There's all kinds of remedy, and they don't want remedy. It doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense. Stu, I know you of all people have tried to make sense out of this. You of everyone. So in a second, we'll get right back to you. What do you want to cover in this next half?
Let's just walk with it here. I think there's a lot of subjects we can touch on.
Okay. All right, Cynthia, you want to
pick
go
up
into
with Martin Dempsey.
Cynthia, you want to cover kind of the nuclear extinction event we're covering? Do you want to cover any of that?
I can certainly speak to that as well as to the cannabis and the hemp issues.
Okay. I appreciate that. We'll get on to that subject here in just a second. Everyone, hang in there, okay?
But let's also touch on what Cynthia's doing.
Okay.
Herself. Okay.
All right. That sounds good, Cynthia.
Okay.
And also, your future plans, if we can get you back into Congress. You serve the whole country, not just your jurisdiction. We can't tell you how honored we are to have you on this. I mean, you're the only one that I've seen that actually has worked for the people. I've not seen anyone else do that. I mean, it's amazing that we got
I
one
haven't
good
seen any of
Congress.
them since 1991 work for the people.
Well, I hear you,
except
Steve.
for Henry Gonzalez.
I hear you.
That's right. Henry Gonzalez, I was blessed to have had the opportunity to sit in his presence. In fact, when I went into the Congress, I was sworn in 1993, and I went to two people. They happened to both be men. One of them was Henry Gonzalez. The other one was Ron Dellums. I told them they were my leaders. And Henry Gonzalez was so special because he had filed articles of impeachment against George Bush, the daddy, George Herbert Walker Bush.
Let's bring that up. Let's bring that up in this half an hour.
Okay.
And we'll touch on that because I talked to Henry on many occasions and worked with his people, and I'm trying to think of the aid he had because he was on top of the House Banking Committee going after him
exactly
continuously.
Right.
Okay, so let's go on that subject. But let's pick on Martin Dempsey, and you pull back in Henry, okay?
Okay.
Are we ready? We all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, it's AllDayLive. We're getting back on the subject. I know we kind of got off the subject, or let's say we carried it a little bit forward. This is AllDayLive, and I'm glad everyone's watching tonight. We're greatly honored to have Congresswoman. In my opinion, she's the only Congressperson that's actually done a job for not just her constituents, but for the whole country, actually for the whole world. I'm going to start on that one, and we have her in the background. That's on YouTube. This is an honor, and it is the Honorable Cynthia McKinney. And Stu, you deserve to be honorable too. Stu Webb. And we have a panel in the background. We have Mr. B, we have Cato, and we have Professor Gizmo in the background as part of our panel. We'll hear from you later, Gizmo and Mr. B as well. But go ahead, Cynthia. As far as you were going into the 911, and it was interesting, all the different things going on. We all know that it was an inside job. We all know that there were 4 buildings that went down. 7, 1, 2, and 6. Never brought up subjects about that. Apparently, Dobbs Sakine walked away with $3.2 trillion, not 2.3. And he was given an award for it. Matter of fact, can you believe this? And then it basically paid for all their exotic research. That's how they verified it in their minds that it was okay to pull it off because it was all based on research, military defense. Can you believe that? But Cynthia and Stu, are we going to help campaign and get her back into office? Is that possible?
I'm always game for that. Believe me, the woman deserves it.
Yeah.
And the work that she has done. But before we get into that, I think we ought to go back here for our listeners. General Dempsey today had his town hall meeting. And I got a call from a friend. I call her my right-hand arm. She's very patriotic, Remick Lewis, and says, Stu, we got to promote Dempsey. So I put it up on Veterans Today last night, about 1 a.m., and on StuWebb.com. And, I get 3 to 5 million hits a month, and Veterans Today right now is getting about 2 million hits per hour. Rated as #1 alternative media. They're getting more hits than mainstream media right now. And things are changing there. And, the stooges of the past are being wormed out, should we say, and the truth tellers are should we say, the things are happening. And even Cynthia has issues of the past, and those are being resolved. But here's the deal, is Dempsey, I promoted it because I said, here's the top general, Joint Chiefs of Staff, an honorable man like Cynthia McKinney is. former congresswoman. Honorable man. And he's doing a town hall meeting for the public on Facebook. Submit your questions. He stopped the war in Syria. He's helped stop the war in Iran. That these AIPAC-controlled Congress and senators tried to promote along with Barack Obama and John Kerry. And they got shut down. And they got shut down by friends of mine in military intelligence, producing evidence that Syria did not attack its people with sarin gas, but it was Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda was the same people, Daddy Bush, the Saudi royal family, Bibi Netanyahu, Leonard Millman, and Larry Mizell that control AIPAC, the Israeli Mossad, that attacked America. And they're going to start a war in Syria. And they're going to start a war. And then the boogeyman shoves up after the Syrian gas thing where they got Russian Putin, the president. I respect him because he says, okay, we're going to confiscate their weapons. It's, proved that it didn't happen. Evidence by Gordon Duff, military intelligence, he admits he is, the Damas Corps. He put out the truth. They got plants. Daddy Bush plants all over the place, creating gas over in the Middle East, in Syria, not Syria, but Lebanon, other places, and that they did the Syrian gas attack. It was shut down. Then Bibi Netanyahu, Daddy Bush, Leonard Millman promote, who control Israel and the United States, promote this, the new boogeyman is going to be Iran. Suddenly, they have this nuclear capability. All that shut down. General Dempsey was summoned to the White House. I'm familiar with this. Barack Obama, at the orders of Susan Rice. We have to attack Syria tonight. We have to attack Syria tonight. General Dempsey says, Mr. President, we can't do that. Why not? We have the capability. He says, start World War III. He says, you got to go before the Congress and Senate. And if you remember these hearings, he and the stooge, John Kerry. John Kerry was a BCCI, which was a combination of Millman, Lincoln Savings, Charles Keating, BCCI, John Connally, the Saudi royal family, Hillary Clinton, and the list goes on, in a lawsuit that put Charles Keating in jail, shut him down. A friend of mine, Time Magazine, Jonathan Beatty, did many stories for me back in 1990 on Silverado, Denver Airport, BCCI, the Outlaw Bank, wrote the book. And then they tried to murder him, gave him skin cancer. He backed out and retired out after he got his $1 million for his book. That was very interesting. It tied them all together. That was the formation of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is being financed by the Israeli Mossad, Bibi Netanyahu, and the Saudi royal family. The Saudis have been in bed with George Herbert Walker Bush since 1972 and called Aramco, the American Arabian Oil Company, where they were putting caps at $10 a barrel on oil out of the ground in America. But yet they could bring in oil at $30 a barrel and $32 a barrel. The pump prices through the roof, and it was all linked to what was called Operation Interlink, and Henry Kissinger at the time, Secretary of State, and so forth, treason, sedition against America, opening the Suez Canal, the elimination of the Nazi gold out of Spain that were hidden in those caves down there because they have the cement, the Portland cement, the highest grade of cement in the world. And they during World War II, the Nazis escaped through the South Pole, which was Admiral Byrd and the Hollow Earth, and the second part of it was they went to the deep water ports in Spain. They got rid of the gold. In 1972, a friend of mine went and saw Bormann, who was still alive, an old Nazi. The whole layer of colonels that protected Adolf Hitler were in Spain, 45 miles northwest of Madrid. And he met with him, in Operation Interlink, opening the Suez Canal, the meltdown of all that gold, turned it into Krugerrands, gold Krugerrands that went through England with the Queen of England involved, etc. And that's where all the old Nazi gold went. Well, that goes way back in treason and sedition. But to move forward, and I'm trying to bring a little history lesson in with what I was discussing. We move forward today. General Dempsey today had a town hall meeting. General Dempsey is aware of all this stuff. Secretary Hagel, who says that I am not an Israeli senator, I am a U.S. senator, when he was a senator, has been brought in. There's a cleanup going on within the military. The ranks of the military have been removed. All these generals that you hear about that have been removed, admirals and colonels, other things, have been answering to Daddy Bush and the Illuminati crime syndicate, who have been controlling Barack Obama. Barack Obama has not been listening to his advisors. As a result, we nearly had a war. General Dempsey, I salute him, as an ex-Marine, former Marine, I salute him, that he stopped those wars. Today he had a town hall meeting. He didn't get any attention over this. So I intentionally put on my site, and I see that we had about 2 o'clock, about 1,200 readers on Veterans Today. I had probably the same number on my website. So we brought him some attention. I looked on Facebook today, and he had approximately 1,000 or 1,200 people that were responding to him. There's things going on inside the government that I'm aware of, and I'll continue for a moment. And then I'll turn the mic over here, should we say, to the Honorable Cynthia McKinney. But I am aware that the military is the only thing left in our country, and they will not shoot the American people as all these DEPCA Israeli stooges, such as, and I'll throw it out here, Alex Jones and all these others have this huge following, and Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly, the Fox News, Israeli Mossad, Rupert Murdoch, Daddy Bush, Leonard Millman Finance Network, and all this other, all the stooges that promote all this stuff. That, the military is going to shoot on the American people, and they're going to shoot the American people. No, the military isn't now. We've seen a change. We've had probably about 50 of them relieved of duties, generals, admirals, colonels. I'm also seeing a change of command. I'm seeing things tighten ship. We've gotten friends of mine, should we say, have relieved Janet Napolitano, a blazing lesbian, her underling suitor for promoting her lesbian lovers up in Department of Homeland Security. She's gone. The FBI Director Mueller's gone. Comey's in. Comey was Assistant Attorney General of the United States who was trying to get the bank bailout scamsters, Daddy Bush in the game. He's now the head of the FBI. The first thing he does is, after he's sworn in, is he goes after Daddy Bush's pedophile ring, busts their entire pedophile ring in the United States, child prostitution. 2,300 kids were put into protective custody, ages of anywhere from 8 to 17 years of age. Some of them have been in there from 3 years of age. That was the Illuminati, Larry Mizell, Leonard Millman, and Daddy Bush's pedophile ring, orchestrated and operated out of Phoenix, Arizona. They didn't bust the top chiefs because we have this problem. He's called Eric Holder, the attorney for Mark Rich, the one that got Mark Rich the presidential pardon with Bill Clinton, Mark Rich the cover-up meister. And we've had this problem since 1981 in my vision that I've seen since Daddy Bush arrived as Vice President of the United States and orchestrated the attempted murder of the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, why his son went to, Hinckley's brother, went to Neil Bush's birthday party in Denver, Colorado, the night of the shooting. And here's Daddy Bush trying to take over, and the Illuminati, one of the Illuminati members, trying to kill the president, and et cetera. And when we look at history here that needs to be revised, other than what this so-called mainstream media has given it, which they took over the media in 1992, completely controlling. And when they took over the studios with the Brofmans, the Mossad, and Millman with ABC News, and Daddy Bush with NBC and CNN, and outed Ted Turner and all that other stuff, that was the end of any kind of media in this country other than the alternative media. And so, therefore, the people have been, they've been fed a carrot continuously. Now, the Congress and Senate have been taken over by AIPAC, the Israeli Mossad, Daddy Bush, the AIPAC. The American-Israeli Pact is the key to espionage in the United States of America.
Stu, I appreciate this. I was just going to say we got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to turn the mic over to Cynthia in a moment. Just let me finish for a moment.
Okay.
The problem is, like we mentioned, or we had a quick discussion, the last congressman, the last honest congressperson, congresswoman, was Cynthia McKinney that I have talked to in the United States of America, the Congress, and that happened in 2001, I believe it is, when we had breakfast at a hotel on the Country Club Plaza off of Main.
Well, maybe we can get her to run for president.
The espionage that has happened in America. Prior to that, one of the other ones I talked to was Henry Gonzalez, the House Banking Chairman in 1995. He had worked with me on many occasions, helped me get the Silverado hearings over the drug bank that Millman owned, Silverado Savings and Loan, and so forth. And with that said, would you pick it up from there, Cynthia?
Well, what I would like to just say is that, everything you said is so correct.
Cynthia, can I mention, I've got Professor Gizmo here. You mentioned Professor Gizmo is quite well known here as a cannabis advocate, freedom advocate here in the Washington State Northwest. Gizmo, what was your suggestion?
Well, why did Cynthia? Would you consider possibly running for nomination for president for the United States? I think it's about time we have a woman president, and you sound like a good candidate. You got my nomination.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And I guarantee you the one thing that we don't want is to be tricked into a Hillary Clinton presidency.
Oh, no.
Saying that, this is the age of the women. But on the hemp and cannabis, I participated in Roseanne Barr's Peace and Freedom campaign when she ran for president out in California. And I got a chance to meet many of the growers, many of the dispensary owners, many very ill people who use cannabis and rely on cannabis as a healthy alternative to being enslaved by the pharmaceuticals. And the Obama administration was prosecuting people who were abiding by state law. And this was after a promise that these prosecutions weren't going to take place. So there's a lot of injustice here that you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you a pill and the side effect is potential suicide. But you can't go to a dispensary that is inspected by the state and get your medicine. It's absolutely wrong. It's a drug policy that's turned upside down. And we have from John Stockwell, who worked at the CIA, that the United States is the problem when it comes to the illicit drug trade. All we have to do is look at, in Afghanistan, without U.S. troops, the poppy growth was down to zero from farming. And now that the United States is there in occupation, Afghanistan has become the number one country for heroin production. It's outrageous.
Well, I don't think they've killed or arrested or blown up one poppy field yet.
If I may add to that, Will, I got the proof and evidence. John McCain, head of Armed Services Committee, Senator John McCain, Israeli senator, calls himself a U.S. senator, but Israeli, controlled by Larry Mizell, the bank bailout scamster, one of the Illuminati people to cause this financial meltdown. John McCain is receiving drug cut from Larry Mizell and Leonard Millman to keep the war in Afghanistan alive. And U.S. military and U.S. intelligence has the evidence of this, including 2 weeks ago a trip to Afghanistan that he made, stopped in Switzerland and cashed out his bearer bonds for his cut of the drug money that Daddy Bush and Leonard Millman give him off of this. Mitt Romney was caught by U.S. military intelligence in Cuba during his presidential campaign, stepping off of an airplane with his KGB daughter's mistress and having sex. They got him on videotape with her, stopping at Leonard Millman, who supposedly died, faked his death in 2004, left the country because he was under heavy federal investigation because of me, and faked his death, who's hiding out in Cuba now, and that Mitt Romney had $3.2 trillion of the Afghan heroin drug money that he was laundering through Bain Capital. And John McCain keeps the war alive in Afghanistan, keeps Guantanamo Bay, Cuba alive, so that Daddy Bush's CIA redemption flights could continue to fly over there and bring heroin back into the United States. Customs agents cannot even check Central Intelligence Agency's flights into the United States. They call it overflight site. They cannot even check the loads of what the Central Intelligence Agency, which has become a rogue agency, they cannot even check what the cargo is in those flights. And that's how they're permitted and allowed and to bring the heroin into the United States, which we have an epidemic of heroin at the current time. And John McCain should be tried for treason and sedition, along with Lindsey Graham, Joseph Lieberman, who is also getting cut of the drug money, and an unnamed congressperson at this time.
Well, one of the other problems that we just have to just make it very clear to the listening audience is that you have people whose loyalty is not to their own constituents. They're voted into office by their constituents. They're paid by their constituents. They are in charge of spending and appropriating the constituents' money that's paid in taxes. And yet, the wishes of another country take priority and precedence over the wishes of the people of the United States. Therein lies the huge problem, and that's why General Dempsey is so important, because he is standing up in a way that we average, ordinary folks who don't have access to the military keys, we can't do it the way they can.
Cynthia, we got one more question from Professor Gizmo. What was it you were going to ask real quick? We got 4 or 5 minutes left. Go ahead.
So, other than, would you realistically maybe consider running for president, number one? And number two, what do you think of, like by unanimous state participation of being medical marijuana states and 2 states being recreational now? How many states does it take, do you think, until our Führer Obama will realize that his loyal subjects need medicine or just recreation, and will just legalize or at least reschedule cannabis and hemp?
Well, that has got to be a movement that is of the people. And we've seen it successful now in, I believe, Washington, D.C., Washington State, Colorado, California. And I'm sure that if it were able to make the ballot
Can we
in
make a
many other states, it would also the drug war is a farce.
now?
And we can look at U.S. policy in Colombia, Afghanistan, and see that it's a farce. So we've been fed a line that doesn't make sense. And I'm happy, I celebrated actually on my Facebook page when the announcement went out that a hemp crop was being harvested just maybe 2 months ago.
Right on, yeah, it grows wild down in the Midwest.
Well, we've got a lot to do, and maybe that if you're putting together, are you gonna? What have you considered? We got about 3 minutes left, Cynthia. What about your future campaigns? What can we do to provide help?
I have one other small
Well, I would need a lot of help because the enemies that I have are kind of like stews. They're very wealthy and very powerful. And but the people can overturn that. And if we were able to break down some walls and allow me to become known to more people, I think we could actually do something very good, starting with returning me to my seat in Congress.
Excuse me, Mr. President-elect. Would you? Do you know anything like? Could we start like a national initiative to legalize or reschedule cannabis and hemp instead of just having state ones?
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
then we should make that so. Let's do it.
So what we need to do is we need to start doing more shows here with Cynthia McKinney, and
That's right.
and start promoting her more because we need good people like her in Congress. I've supported her in the past. I will always support this woman. She's one of the few honorable people to serve the United States Congress. I cannot say, but I've known about 6 or 7. And Paul Wilshire is now dead. Henry Gonzalez is dead. And 2 or 3 of the others, Chris Shays and Tom Lantos, that once I thought were honorable, turned, and they're apex stooges now. And
Stu?
I think Cynthia can verify who controls the United States Congress today. Is it apex, Cynthia?
Well, I guarantee you that if you don't get the support of AIPAC, and let me just close on this. Congressman Gus Savage put his treatment on the record, and I think every voter in the United States needs to read it. It's called Laying Out the Facts, and he talked about how the New Jersey Garden Club and all of these, made-up names of something that wasn't really what it was because they were all packed.
Stu and Cynthia,
that were associated with AIPAC.
We're at the end of the hour, and Cynthia, we've got your Facebook information here. Appreciate it. And Stu, we have your contact information, StuWebb.com, StuWebb. And then we also have Professor Gizmo. Thank you very much. Mikado from the Compassionate Provider Group here, and also Northwest Cannabis Market, and also Mr. Beef, who's Semper Fi. Thank you, Mr. Beef.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everybody for watching. Thank you, and we'll do some more broadcasts with you, Cynthia. Maybe we can get you elected. I've helped a lot of people get elected.